Auckland Investment Club.
Oh, hello. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. Pretty excited about this topic. You know, it's something that I'm personally quite passionate about, despite, this current market. Hope everyone's, keeping safe, keeping cozy at home. So the topic is passive income. And if you guys came tonight, you guys are probably here because you saw the headline is how you can accelerate your first or next $1 million in equity through property investments. So a good presentation comes with a good disclaimer. I'm a registered financial advisor, so we do mortgage advice, not investment advice. So the things that we're going to discuss are ideas and case studies compiled from working with over 1,000 clients, right? Not going to be individual advice, so I do recommend that you seek your own advice before making any investment decisions. So jumping into it, here's a shortcut to your first million. So 4 steps. Step one, borrow $1 million and buy a home in Central. Step number 2, make sure it's close to a train station. Step number 3, make sure it has land. And step number 4, sell it in 7 to 10 years. So if you don't believe me, here's a couple of case studies. Auctions early this year. So this first one on the right corner is Aroa Street in New Lynn. This one, CV, was 975. Sold for 1.8 million, 52 Matapua Road in Te Aratū Peninsula. CV's 920 and sold for 1.4 million. Kings Road, Pamuir, 1.18. CV sold for 1.5. They're selling at developer's margin. So these are prior to COVID-19, but you guys are probably thinking, man, COVID-19, this is really gonna, play a lot in the market. But this one here, to Heritonga and Onehunga, actually sold for 2.51 million just a week ago. And the CV was 1.82. So this is what we're going to talk about today. Like, how are people still paying such a high price? And at the end of the day, what happens is for investor, they're working with numbers, and developers are buying based on margin. So they're not buying based on market price. They're paying below what their target price is. And that's something we're going to sort of explore, and how you're going to apply the safety margin into your investment plans as well. So yeah, that is the shortcut to 1 million. Thanks for coming. So go ahead and go buy a property in Auckland. Okay, jokes aside. So one of the main things that you need to understand is that how savvy investors are shortening the gaps between each of their property purchases. And this is how they're building the equity much faster than other people. So you see the right side on here, this little graph, and the black line is representing our wealth. Over time, we build this wealth to a point where we're like, okay, we can stop working and still enjoy the same lifestyle. And, another term for this is financial freedom. And if you have the right people around you, and if you're getting the right advice, you're doing the right research, you're focusing on the right things, you're going to get there a lot sooner. And this is what the savvy investors are doing differently. So what are you going to get from today? Just one thing. Look, I'm trying to focus on one thing, and that is absolute clarity with numbers. And I truly believe in any market, you can work with numbers. And if you work the numbers, you can build the passive income that you want, $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 plus from properties for the rest of your life. So a quick case study. So what does a property with passive income actually look like? And here's a deal that I did with a good friend last year. So this is a property in Hastings. It's 3 units on 1 title. We bought it in August, settled at $570,000. So when we settled this deal, we double checked with the property managers nearby, making sure it's in a decent area. We asked around to see which property manager would take another 2 or 3% property management fee to get guaranteed rent. So basically what that means is if there's no tenants for 2 weeks, they're going to guarantee the rent. So we managed to get that at 10% management fee. At the time is $980 per week. So when we got it, it was already at 8.6 gross yield. And what this basically measures is the cash flow that's coming in. And if interest rates at 3%, so you've got a bit of margin there to pay for all your expenses. So what's important in a deal like this in Hastings, council rates are much higher than usual. Insurance potentially is higher as well. So after expenses, 2 weeks vacancy accounted for, and setting aside $3,000 a year for maintenance, this property is still making $12,500 per year. And this is based on 100% finance. So if I had to borrow $570,000 on the current mortgage interest rate, is actually slightly more. So this was based on the 3.5% that we were doing. So with a property like this, what we did was, you can see it was kind of like this old green, light green and pink color. We have started painting this, and yeah, it was looking pretty sweet, but because of the lockdown, it's not finished just yet. So I love to share some of these photos when I finish it, but it's looking pretty good. And I think, we'll be able to push up the value just a little bit. But yeah, it just depends where the market is heading. But what I'm trying to focus on here is that $12,500 per year. What you can choose to do with that kind of income is you can choose to use that for another trip, like year on year, or you could decide to put that back, reinvest in the property. And if you leave the cookie in the cookie jar, it's going to you're looking at least $30,000 passive in 15 years. So now imagine if you had 3 or 5 of these, right? And that's sort of a glimpse of what passive income on properties look like. So you're asking, okay, where are you going to find these deals? Very simple: Trade Me, real estate, homes, local agents, friends and family. Those are all places that you can find this deal. So you can see this was listed by property brokers. And yeah, but the truth is, like, if you don't have clarity on exactly what you're working towards or actually looking for, I can put this deal right in front of you and I say, hey, look, just sign the contract. You won't see the opportunity, even if it's right in front of you. So every time you see Andrew with the t-shirt, we're giving out some t-shirts. So what I'm going to do right now is ask you one question. If you guys are listening, what is the one thing savvy investors do differently? What is the one thing? Put in chat right now. All right. Okay, so some really, really good answer. Buy cheap, buy land, take action, goals. I think talk to Blandon. Oh my gosh, you guys are too cool. But look, I'm gonna let Timmy be the judge of that. So Timmy is gonna take your details and pick one of you privately and message and go, hey, look, we're gonna send out a awesome Mortgage HQ t-shirt, one that Andrew's wearing right now. We choose to use his photo because he looks like one of those mannequins. All right, so we're gonna carry on. So who is this random Asian guy? So some of you don't know me. My name is Blandon. I'm one of the directors and co-founders of Mortgage HQ. We formerly known as iRefi.co.nz. And we believe one thing: people can live life and own homes without mortgage worries. And so how do we do that? At the moment, we give them mortgage holidays. But normally, we educate online. So you can jump on mhq.co.nz, YouTube channel as well. We've got tons of videos and articles on there. Secondly, we've got mortgage advice. So we offer advice. We've got some handsome advisors on the right-hand corner: Daniel, Jeremy, David, all passionate about properties and investments in general. And, it's just about giving the good mortgage advice, And thirdly, the way we make money is we arrange mortgages. So some of the lenders that we have down on the panel there, and the best of all is that it's a free service paid by the banks. So yeah, in the last few years, we're very fortunate to serve a whole lot of clients, and the average review is 4.9 stars. So you can check out Google, Facebook for some of the reviews, and yeah, we've got a pretty good team. So I'm very proud of them, and yeah, definitely, if mortgage is something that you guys are looking for, can check MHQ out. So a little bit about myself. After completing my finance degree, I actually took I rated one of the toughest jobs in the world, which is a commission-only insurance advisor. And at the time, I was thinking, okay, how can I challenge myself and really learn about business? And sales business is what I really believe was the skill I need to grind on. And so my friends and my family actually thought I was crazy. And 2 years in, I was actually beginning to think I was crazy as well, because I was working 60 hours every week. And if you divided my wage, my income by the hours, I was actually less than minimum wage of $13.50 at the time. But one client meeting really changed my life, right? And, you know, before I met this Malaysian family, I didn't really know what it meant to be out of the rat race. And they were actually in their 30s and they had 5 kids. And I was like, okay, you know, what are these guys doing? Because not only did they let me look at the insurance, they actually asked me to get them a mortgage for their 5th property. And I was just amazed. I was like, man, 5th property. And they must be pretty rich, right? And to my surprise, they had a modest income of 130,000 combined. And with their first property, they shared their story with me, and it was just using a 10% deposit on their first home. So I was really encouraged by this, and I was so moved that I thought people needed to know this, because, you know, I was asking how, because my parents, they were in their 50s and they were earning more than this family, but they were actually still paying down their first mortgage. And, you know, we didn't have any other investments. And I realized, you know, over time, it came down to 2 things. And the first one is that they leverage good debt through properties whenever they could. And secondly, they have clarity with their numbers, and they had a strong vision of where they're trying to go with their property goals. So what does that look like? And the universal principle in property, this is the most important foundation one, is equity recycling. So in this picture here, you've got number 1, existing property with a bit of equity. So you buy your first property, over time, the value goes up, you pay down the mortgage. If you have surplus income at the time, you'll be able to top up a loan for a deposit, and the bank will lend it to you based on your income. Thirdly, you can take this deposit out as a cash amount, and you can get in a pre-approval with the bank. And now that you have tenants generating rental income, you can borrow the remaining amount to pay for that property. So 5 years later, I've settled roughly 350 mil of mortgages. Our company now has 1,300 clients nationwide. So pretty proud of the team. We were able to, you know, serve a lot of people, and we're fortunate enough to be named one of the top advisors in New Zealand by NZ Advisor in 2017, 18, and 19. We serve single moms buying second properties to super investors with 30 plus properties. So I can tell you there's a lot of learnings, because people who has done it before, they love sharing their knowledge, and the fun just never stops. So I'm really fortunate to be in this role. So 3 lessons in this presentation. There are 3 things. We're going to go over destination, how you can clarify your end goal, vehicle, different types of property strategies, because not everyone can afford the upkeep of a Lamborghini. Perhaps you need to, you know, get to point B with a Toyota to start with. And number 3 is the roadmap, because once you have chosen your vehicle, you need a guide for your decisions. So lessons I wish someone would have taught me when I first started investing in properties. So I'm going to explain how they work, how savvy investors actually apply them, and give you some actionable items to take away. So unfortunately, this is not for everyone. Like some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about, you know, if you haven't sold yourself on properties yet, like if you're still wondering why you need to invest in properties, it's going to be really hard for you to listen to. Or if you're sort of on the fence about building passive income, this is going to be tough as well. So I do suggest checking out the below 20 properties in 1 year. This is by a famous investor, Graham Fowler. He actually pulled that off, you know, in 1 year. And I can tell you, if you apply his theories in his book, you might not be able to pull off 20 properties in the current market, but you certainly pull at least 5 if you really study what he did. Second book that I recommend is Property 101. What I love about this book is that, Matthew Gilligan, he loves his data and spreadsheets. So this book has full of historic data, and just a lot of information about properties. I see it as a New Zealand property market Bible. And thirdly, if you don't like to read, you can go with Graham Stephan. Graham Stephan, he's property investor himself in America, but what's cool about Graham Stephan is that he explains the concepts in such a simple form. It really connects with anyone. And if you're just getting started, I really suggest that you check out his channel, Graham Stephan. Cool. So who is this for? If you're a stressed investor, you might have a few properties, but seem to be stressed by the debt all the time. If you're confused, if you have 1 or 2 properties, but sort of paralyzed with all the information and gurus out there. Or thirdly, you're a future investor, you thought about it, you want to do it, but you're always giving yourself excuse, time, money, knowledge, don't have those. This is going to be very helpful. And if you're a committed investor, if you've got a horizon of 5 to 30 years and excited about building wealth, we're going to get along just fine. So lesson number 1, the reason wannabe investors can't sleep at night is because of this. They don't have an exit strategy. An exit strategy, simply put, is setting up a goal. And when you hit that goal, you got to do something, do something as in stop buying or actually sell some properties down or do the things that you promise yourself you're going to do. Because a lot of people, they keep going and they kind of get stuck with like, oh yeah, I'm just going to stick with the same strategies and keep buying and just loading themselves up with debt. And until it's a long time before they can actually, feel the fruits of their labor or eat the fruits of their labor. So don't mistake an exit strategy as just selling. It might involve selling, but a property exit strategy might involve the following. So liquidation, selling parts of your portfolio to reduce debt. Secondly, you could recapitalize, reducing a debt level through other capitals injections, such as selling, like if you have a massive portfolio, you could potentially sell off a bit of shares to somebody, just one example. Or thirdly, and this is the least used, only a very small portion of the property investors that I deal with actually utilize this, which is trading yields. If you have an Auckland property for a long time, and what happens is what you're going to notice is the cash flow to value ratio, which is, the value is growing faster than your rent. If that's happening, you're not going to get as much bang for your buck. You're not going to feel the cash flow on that property. So sometimes it's actually better to let those go and try and look for higher cash flow assets so that you can actually feel that cash flow coming in. So notice all 3 are actually trying to achieve the same thing, and that is increasing your cash flow position. So what would you rather have right now? Like right now, we're practically in a recession. You can have another $100,000 of income every year without you actually having to work, or you can have another $150,000 of capital gains that you can't access. I know for myself, like number 1, like any day of the week, that's going to be far more important. And capital gains might be something I would utilize in a different situation. So many investors actually make the mistake of not having an exit strategy. Some might actually stay on negative cash flow because they're just too scared. They're too scared to lose their capital gains. They're always chasing for that dollar, because they're stressed about their debt levels. They have little flexibility with the banks. They're told they're maxed out all the time, and they have to work their 9 to 5, which is kind of ironic because you're doing this investment stuff to get out of the 9 to 5. So in summary, capital gains actually make you rich, but cash flow is what really truly liberates you. Peace of mind, being able to be in a position to quit your job and do the things you love, real financial freedom is cash flow. So exit strategy, how can you apply this? I'm going to show you one of my clients, one of my really frugal Chinese couple client. They bought a property 20 years ago in Hamilton after finishing university. They bought this for $150,000 with the intention to actually build on it in the future. Over the 10 years, they actually bought property whenever they could and ended up with 4 more. And they just sat on the capital gains. And they were on pretty modest income. 20 years later, Mr. and Mrs. Chen actually sold off 2 properties. They used that cash to build 4 duplex on this Hamilton property. So the same piece of land that I just showed you, 4 of these weatherboard duplex. And they have freed up cash flow of $150,000 well before their retirement age. So that's a pretty good position to be in. They didn't have a 10 property portfolio. They had like 3, but they had $150,000 cash flow, which is an awesome position to be in. So exit strategy. There's a theory called the Trinity study. also known as the 4% rule. And what this study was about was trying to determine what is the safe withdrawal rate from your investment portfolio. And like the name itself, 4% is what you find as a safe sort of withdrawal rate. What that basically means, if you had $1 million invested, you can draw 4% forever. Your kids and kids' kids and kids' kids' kids can draw 4% from that $1 million investment forever and ever. So right now, what I want you guys to do, you guys probably have your phone right in front of you, or you can just pull down the calculator. What I want you guys to do is take your salary, unless you've got, 200K or 250K salary. If, you take your salary, divide it by 0.04. So that's a good starting point, because what you can do is, this is your goal. This is your basic first investment property equity goal over and above your own occupied. So if you've got investment, if you've got a property that you live in, the equity in that doesn't count. So we're purely counting what is in your investment equity portfolio. So by doing this, divided by 0.04, once you reach that, you can actually trade your equity for properties with higher cash flow or assets. So give it a go, take a salary and divide it by 0.04. Very easy to do. And that can be your very first goal. All right, so we've got another question for you guys, giving out another free t-shirt. So what I want you guys to do right now is put in the chat 3 potential exit strategy. What are the 3 bullet points that we talked about for exit strategy? So you have to put all 3 in the chat. First one to put that in, and Timmy sees that, he's going to be able to message you privately and send you a Mortgage HQ shirt. Oh. It's a tough one. Liquidate, oh yeah, that's good. Trading yields, nice. So we've got Melissa Lever, I know. Welcome, Melissa. Good to see you listening. Awesome, so we're gonna carry on. So now to determine how quickly you're actually gonna get there. And the vehicle is what we're gonna talk about next. Timmy, I don't know how to get rid of that yellow line on the screen, but so I'm going to introduce you guys to the BIRD formula, and the BIRD formula is what all great property strategies derive from. The strategy that you actually choose will actually determine how quickly you're going to achieve your magic equity number. And everything that you're trying to do here is actually to accelerate this process here, which is recycling your equity and being able to use it again. And a lot of people might mistake that just having your property increase in value. There's actually more, just a little bit more than that. And we're going to dive into the details of that. So what does BIRD stand for? B stands for buy below target value. So not market value, but target value, because depending on the type of strategy for you, like say, for example, a person who's buying to subdivide, they can afford to pay above market value, because if they know the end value is higher than what it's going to be, like above what they projected for, then they can buy below target value. Secondly, improving the property. So this is adding value. You always hear that. Renovations is the most basic way, but you can also do like, chop up the land, put a minor dwelling at the back, all sorts of stuff. Reclad, some people might buy plaster homes. And then you're going to revalue the property. So after you do your work, your improvement, you'll be able to revalue the property. And then fourth is refinancing and recycling your deposits. So going back to the bank, based on the new valuation, you're going to top up a deposit so you can recycle your deposit and you can do it again. So this is very exciting for me to share this, because we're about to open your third eye for properties, because you can apply this to any property strategies. And so we are going to look at some real example off the plans. This is a very simple one to understand. Basically this client bought this property for $550,000 in 2016, July, put a 10% deposit down of $55,000. And what they did was to improve it. I mean, in a new build, it's very hard to improve, because you're building on minimal land and you're actually having to buy a new house that you can't renovate. So the way you can improve it is, you can furnish it up and increase the rental income. By the end of it, at 2018 April, we're able to revalue it at 725,000. So what that basically means is the value when he settled is almost 200,000 more. So he's actually able to refinance, and we recycle this $85,000 out, and he's actually investing that in other investments. So he can actually do it again. So the classic do-up, I'm going to show you an example of the Hastings one. So next to it is a property just up the road, about 3 minutes away. That one actually sold 3 months later for 776. We were really stoked when we saw this because the land size and the floor area and the property is very much the same, but the only difference is that it's quite tidy. So you know, it's got fresh paints. Like it doesn't have a modern kitchen, it's just got a standard kitchen. But basically we knew we could do a bit of work to our one to get it up close to that level. So 570 was our purchase price, and second is you know, in a 570K purchase price we put down 171,000. Unfortunately with this type of property, because you got 3 units on it, it's pretty hard to get 80% on this type of property. So you have to make sure when you're doing your calculation, you're doing a 30% deposit. So multi-units are very good. So we're spending 60,000 on renovations. As you can see, I showed you the photos of some of the paint job before. So renovate and modernize. We are aiming for $730,000 revaluation. It's in the exact same area, just up the road, so we're pretty confident we can at least get to that level. So we'll be able to recycle 112,000. So not exactly all of our deposit, but you know, a good chunk of it, leaving just $120,000 in the property. So we're locking at 112. So as long as we got enough cash to settle on another one, we can actually do this one again and then put it in another property. So example number 3, I'm going to use a famous accountant example, GRA, Matthew Gilligan. It's an older deal, but I really like this, and I can tell you the numbers still work. The purchase price and the revaluation is not going to be the same. You're not going to be able to buy as cheap, but the margins work exactly the same. So this property was bought at 625,000 in Gleneden, and he basically built and moved the house in front. The total cost of that, so you can see there's 2 new houses built, and then he moved that old house to the front, so there's more space at the back. The total cost is 1.28 million. So what you want to do in this kind of deal is have around 30% in deposits. So 571,000 deposit is probably what you need at 30%. And you go, man, how would I get 571,000? I can tell you a lot of clients, you know, if you have Auckland property for last 10 years, 571,000 equity is really nothing. So revalue at 2.3 million. So we're looking at 500. So yeah, 2.3. You can see the costing is around 1.8, and the revalue is 2,350,000. So we recycle 546,000 at a non-bank. So we put in 570 and we pull out 546, leaving just $25,000 in the property. When I say non-bank, it means that we're not going to ANZ, ASB, or Westpac. We're going with a bank that is probably average mum and dad won't know. But Resimac is a good one that will refinance something at 80% or select. So leaving just $25,000, you know, how many of you would want to own 3 properties in Auckland, just putting in $25,000 deposit? So that is quite achievable. I mean, these properties that he built was built by Ashcroft Homes. They have a 5-month guarantee timeline for construction. So, you know, your margins are going to be lower, but you're still going to make money. So there's a lot of strategies on the market at the moment. Things like double settlement, flipping, trading, live and flip, house hacking, regional cash flow, subdivision and sell, and land banking. So many strategies. Where you're going to start? You know, we can talk all week or all month, you know, to explore these strategies. So how you're going to apply this is, the first thing you need to understand is you want to avoid getting stuck. The worst thing that you can do right now, if you're just starting in properties, is get that 700K max approval from your bank and just put that 700K on one property. And that is exactly what I did for my first property. I got stuck for a long time because When I went in, the deposit went from 20 to 30%, and the market was staggering. So I used up all my borrowing capacity, and I wasn't able to move for like 3 years. So it's so important that you use a strategy that complements your current financial position. So if you don't know when you're standing, you want to take 90 seconds to do the mortgage snapshot, mhq.co.nz. You get a free borrowing summary. So you can see in this graph here, on the right-hand corner, you're in a position where you're high cash flow, high equity. You can pretty much do any strategy you want. But if you're in the low equity, low cash flow, it's so important on what you choose to do on your first property. So I've changed the slides actually. So you can see now there are, instead of how much you can borrow, it says the type of strategy you might go for. So maybe in the low equity, low cash flow position, you really want to be able to get your equity back quickly. So things like double settlement that don't actually require any deposit. So double settlement is when you find a good deal and you know someone else would buy this off you before it settles at a higher price. That's a double settlement. Property finder, that is helping other people find properties. Now, there might be some legal issues there. You might need to get a real estate license because a lot of the rulings have changed. But depending how you do it or who you're doing it for, maybe just a friend or family that you're just doing the work for them, they could easily pay you 10 to 20,000 if you find a good deal. JV flipping is, each of you put a little bit of money in there so you can recycle your equity quickly. So if the strategy doesn't allow you to keep expanding towards your goal, it's probably not the right fit. So if you have no deposit, this guy here, if you guys have watched some of his video, he's a $1 billion investor. His name is Grant Cardone. And, he puts on his, I think it's like a Texas accent. He's like, don't focus on the money, man. Focus on the deal. Focus on the deal. And, that's a lot of truth in what he's talking about. Because if you know how to find a deal, you can pitch your existing, you can pitch your wife, you can pitch your husband, you can pitch your family who has a property. You can pitch equity partners, people with a bit of money and don't have the time. You can do a joint venture, maybe go half-half. And you can pitch a second mortgage. So second mortgage is literally if you have, let's say the deal requires 30% deposit and you only have 15, so you only have half the deposit. A second mortgage company will give you the remaining deposit at a high interest rate of 20%. But you can settle the property. You won't be able to settle at the main bank like ANZ, ASB, all those guys. You'll need to settle at a non-bank lender. So mezzanine finance, this is a mixture of equity and debt. So it's a mixture a cross between both, and it's a little bit more complex. But there are types of deals that uses mezzanine finance, and then double settlement. As I was saying, if you just can't find the deposit, but if you really determined, you can do double settlement. So like my colleague Daniel, very hardworking young man, on his way to becoming a top advisor as well. He did a deal in Tokoroa. His friend was starting to just help his friends to find property deals. So Daniel took that deal as a double settlement. And, after he took on that deal, he's still getting 10% cash flow with all the margins in there. Sort of talking about vacancy rates and all the expense, and still come up cash flow positive. So lesson number 3 is the roadmap. And property investing is truly a numbers game, I believe. And getting the numbers right is the only way, because one of the biggest problems that I see on the current market is that a lot of property coaches, gurus out there still teaching a property strategy that worked 10 years ago when the borrowing environment was vastly different. Today, if you walk into ANZ, they're going to say no to your construction loan. So, this is a different environment right now. So a lot of them might have these strategies that they might charge you very, very good money for. And they show you this 10 property portfolio. No matter how hard you work, you're just not going to replicate the same thing. So getting the numbers right, press the wrong button there. In other words, in short, the strategy is a fairy tale unless the bank will continue to lend you the money. So you just got to let it go. Just to give you an example of how policies have changed over the years, the LVR roller coasters, deposit on investment properties. This is a massive change. So this is when I first started investment, 20% to 30%, I was forced to use my approval. And then the market staggered because a lot of investors got kicked out of the market, turned them off, having to put up 30%. And then in 2016, what they found was people who have 30% deposit are the people with 10 properties. So they had to slow it right down with the 40% deposit because it wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. In 2018, now it's sort of back down at 35%, 2019 down to 30%. So who knows what's going to happen in 2021. And so that's why it's so important to have a specialist on your team, a mortgage advisor, because, you know, policies changes all the time. Like things like, you know, I haven't even touched on responsible lending, interest only rules, servicing capacity rules. There's a lot of things that a mortgage advisor can help you with. So let's look at a do-up strategy as an example. This is a $500,000 purchase price, $80,000 renovation. So you can see the before after, making it look pretty snazzy with a new paint job. In the past, you know, you could get away with 15% deposit, even if it's an investment property, meaning if you have 18% increase in value, so if you bought it undervalued by 10%, and if you renovate it, increase it by another 10, you can actually get your whole deposit back. So today, 30% deposit, meaning you actually need a 43% increase in value to recycle all of your deposit and your renovations capital. So I can tell you, majority of investors are not getting 43% increase. You know, I've got the one or two out there. Yeah, like one of my clients, young dude, he just does trading. He is getting this kind of margin, but you know, that's the kind of people you're competing with. They're doing this day in, day out, and they've been doing it for, you know, last 5 to 10 years. So that's pretty hard to compete in. So that strategy becomes very hard to recycle your equity. So that's why the 3 C's are so important. So 3C stands for cash flow. How are you going to make sure the bank can keep lending you money? And one of the cool things by thinking about this is, you know, you are in a much safer position because the banks are very conservative. Like if you're just working on very slim margins, the banks are not going to keep lending you money. But if you're on high cash flow, they're going to keep lending you money. And capital equity gains, how quickly can you recycle your deposit? Capital improvement, what opportunities are there for this property to actually accelerate 1 and 2? So by understanding this, you're going to recognize the gold nuggets when they're in front of you. You're going to become a real investor because real investors look at numbers and learn to apply safety margin or margin of safety. This is a famous concept in the Intelligent Investor, a book that is preached by Warren Buffett. So the application, cash flow, how you're going to do this in order to achieve infinite servicing. And what this basically means is you want to get your portfolio to a level where the bank will just keep lending you money. Now, in reality, it's pretty hard to do, but that's what you want to aim for, because you want to be in a position where you can just keep borrowing more money. And highest mortgage coverage possible is the most important thing. So here's a quick formula on mortgage coverage. So mortgage coverage is your annual rent divided by total mortgage. So if you want to trigger the infinite servicing at the main bank right now, what you need to do is aim for 10.5% mortgage coverage. So you're like, man, 10.5%, that's super high. Well, actually, if you are buying a property where you're putting some cash into that deal and not 100% finance, 10.5 is actually very much achievable. And a non-bank lender, you can go as low as 9%. And this is as of 2020 April. I feel like there's gonna be another servicing drop. So basically, what that basically means is banks might drop their criteria on how they calculate how much you can borrow, because interest rate is, it's gonna stay low for a while. So to give you an example, there's 3 units that we bought in Hastings. You know, I'm aiming for $15 increase in rent after renovation, so $45 increase. So $1,025 per week. So I will be able to revalue the property. Maybe if I'm not getting $500 mortgage, $511,000, maybe I'll be able to top up to $500,000 mortgage. So you can see $53,000 over my mortgage amount of $511,000. That's a mortgage coverage of 10.43%. So a property like this is very much close to infinite servicing. And what that basically means is if you have enough equity, you can pull off a few of these property, even though your income is not that high. So capital equity gains. How does this work? Top investors are actually recycling most of the equity or deposits within the first 6 to 12 months. That's how you're actually going to get to 10 properties in 10 years. And what you're looking for is the in value margin. So value increase divided by total cost. So ideal scenario we want to be in. So here's some quick cheat sheet, like a snapshot of what you need to aim for. If you can get 15% deposit, this might be you buying the property to live in. And all you need to do is 18% increase to actually recycle all of your deposit. So you can buy under value, and then you can also renovate or build a minor dwelling or something like that. 20% deposit deal, you need 25% increase in under value or increase in renovations. 30% deposit again is 43%. So give you a real case example, going back to off the plan example, we bought this property for $550 and the increase is actually 31%. So straight away you can recognize that you can recycle all of your deposit out of this deal. Example number 3, subdivide and build. You can see that's a 23.4% increase. So not quite 25, because we're going to non-bank and borrowing 80%, but you're leaving 25,000 in the property. So you can actually do this again. So capital improvement, increasing the cash flow of the end value of the property to help 1 and 2. So there's a lot of things you can do, cosmetic renovations, adding a bedroom. That's a famous strategy by renovations, buying 2-bedroom units. That's over 70 square meters, source of income instead of just one. Minor dwelling, again, minor dwelling is very hard to pull off in Auckland now, but if you visit things like places like, anyone here, back again, can we, all good? Okay, so minor dwelling extension, harder to do in Auckland, but you can pull those off, in cities like Christchurch or in Palmerston North. All you need to do is jump on the council website and then maybe connect with a few builders to give you some advice around that. Subdivision and build. That's actually one of my favorite at the moment. I've been trying to look at deals where I could maybe land bank a little bit until this COVID-19 is, our economy is doing a little bit better. It's an unfortunate time. At the same time, I think, you're going to be able to help somebody who wants to free up some cash flow. So example number 3, subdivide and build. So you're thinking, some of you might be thinking far out, 3 properties leaving 25,000 in there. It's pretty dangerous, right? You're loading yourself up with a lot of debt. So the other thing you need to think about is cash flow, because the original house gives you $500. And so that's a gross yield of 4.16. So not that exciting, nothing exciting, because your interest rate's around 3.5% now. Gross yield after your insurance and other expense, you don't really have much left. But what Matt did in his example was actually sell the original house and to pay down some of the mortgage. So he sold the original house, kept the 2 new ones, $660 per week at the time. So this gross yield is at 5.14. So in the current market, this is going to be cash flow positive, because interest rate's you're going to be able to lock it in at like 3, maybe later on it might be at like 2.8 even. And you've got a little bit of margin there to pay for everything else. This is actually one of my favorite deals last year. It's a home and income in Wellington. And this is in a very nice location. It's outlooking to, there's views. There's nice views on this property. There's 5-bedroom upstairs, 2-bedroom downstairs. And before we actually renovated, it was actually a really prestige deal, because it was already giving $1,130 per week on $785,000 purchase price. So that's a gross yield close to 7.5%. And we did a top up for them on the existing property, got $160,000 to do renovations. And by the end of it, we haven't even finished downstairs yet, but just the upstairs increased by about $500. And yeah, total cost is 945,000, meaning this property is at 9.08% gross yield. So pretty nice property to hold. And they did a really nice job as well on the paint job, and you can see the kitchen is brand new. So how are you going to apply 3Cs? So I actually have a Google Sheet for you. It's I made it a little bit harder than usual. You know, like it's not going to be just questions that are easy to answer. It's going to require you to actually think. So if you check out mhq.co.nz/3Cs, Timmy is going to add that in. Timmy's going to add that in the chat, and you're going to do some numbers. I really encourage you to, you know, run these calculations, make sure you understand them. And there will be answers in another spreadsheet. You'll be able to check your answer, cross-reference. No, I'm not going to give out the address, unfortunately. I'm sorry. So another question here. So infinite servicing at the main banks. What is the mortgage coverage that we're looking for? Oh, Albert. Too quick. So Albert's going to get a shirt. So Timmy, note that down, please. So conclusion. What is the conclusion? You need to have a clarity on your end goal, exit strategy. You need to choose the right vehicle for your current situation. So using the BIRD strategy, exploring different options, and then again, different strategy is going to use different guidelines for your property decision. And sometimes it's not about like looking at all of the numbers. It might just be one or two that is very important for your current situation right now. And by knowing all three and not applying them onto your investing journey, it's kind of like building a house on the sand. And the rain came down, the floods came, the winds blew and beat on that house and it fell. And great was its fall. So you have two choices right now, right? So we talked about this stuff. You can do nothing. You can go, oh yeah, that was a pretty cool example. And I think maybe due to this current market, I'm just going to wait it out and do nothing. Or you can choose to take action, because this is the best time to just make offers with due diligence. And what that basically allows you to do is learn, right? If you put an offer subject to due diligence, it doesn't mean you're going to go ahead with that property. So this is the perfect time to do that kind of stuff. And I just want to show you what the cost of waiting looks like, because if you want to retire with 1.5 million, and that is really nothing, you know, by retirement age, 1.5 million is really going to be nothing, assuming no capital gains tax. And this is over and above your own occupied. This is assuming your own occupied is paid off. You have another 1.5 to play with. So we're going to look at a expected return of 5.5%, which is sort of the average return in the property market. If you have 40 years to invest, all you need to do is very easy. Go to the bank, borrow 200,000, put it on above average property. It's going to be pretty hard to find a $200,000 property, but this 200,000 leverage is going to get you to 1.5 in 40 years time. In 30 years, this almost doubles to 376. And if you only have 20 years to invest, this is at 782. Still very much achievable for a lot of people, investing in another $780 in another property. But if you only have 10 years, 2.1 million leverage is what you're looking for to retire 1.5 mil. So this is the cost of waiting. The earlier you put your money in on a good property at a good target value or under market value, the easier you're going to get to that 1.5 mil. So a good starting point, I would suggest, these are sort of the position you want to be in. You want to make sure you have a bit of cash flow as a couple, at least 100,000, I would say. If you're single, I would probably recommend that you at 70,000 plus. Have some equity in a home. It doesn't have to be your home. Maybe you got your family on board to support you. I would really start off with just 60,000 at least at the moment. If you put a 30% deposit down in a regional property, that's going to be your 30% deposit. Or if you put it in as a 10% deposit in Auckland on the new build as well. So you, in this current market, the most important thing is to make sure you at least have half of year interest in the bank. This is over and above your living costs, you know, your emergency fund. This is just backup fund for your interest. So I would definitely, you know, just assume there's going to be half a year that you're not going to get any rent, but a good deal is a good deal. So believe that property is the right vehicle. So unfortunately, I didn't use any graph of like, you know, the market is always upwards. I didn't show you any wealth wheels. if you want to be convinced that property is the right vehicle, go back to those couple of books that I suggested. Check out some YouTube videos. There's a lot on this. And if you're ready to put some work in up front, because property is one of those things, you've got to put the work up front and later on you reap the benefits. So you're going to fall into category A or B. So category A is that you're very clear with your goals and you're only needing some guidance on your financing and you want to talk shop. So I suggest that you take these 3 steps. Number 1 is create a profile on mhq.co.nz/profile. Number 2, our team will actually set you up with a mortgage review. And number 3, you're going to be able to look at your options with one of the mortgage advisors. So it's a very simple step. You just need a bit of guidance. That's an easy 3-step. And the reason why you would use a mortgage advisor over the bank, because if you're dealing with the bank and you're an investor, you're actually leaving money on the table every day. And the reason for this is, number 1, your banker, your private bank with a good relationship, unfortunately they can't maximize your position because they're only working with the one product. Secondly, they're generalists. What that basically means, they're more focused on the transaction and their promotion than mortgage and property investments. And thirdly, they can't administer advice. Now, this might change in the future, but at the moment, bankers are QFE. What that basically means in our industry is that they can only give advice on the single product, whereas a registered financial advisor like us are able to give you advice on all the mortgage products on the market. So it's kind of like going to see the GP when you really need to see a specialist. So our service is free. A little pitch here, hope you guys don't mind, is, if you need a mortgage advisor, we've got 3 types. Junior advisors who are more transactional focused, you're just needing some help there. You know exactly what you need to do. You need some structured advice. Our mortgage advisor can actually help with that. Or senior advisors, if you're looking for a more advanced borrowing strategy, sort of 3+ properties, it's a free service. So our advisor is actually paid by the banks. So there's a lot of incentive for us to help you grow your portfolio and borrow more. But, true, I can, hands on heart, I can tell you, although we want you to borrow more, at the same time, we want to make sure you're in a safe position, cash flow wise, especially in the current market. And you have thought about the things that, to make sure that you're buying putting yourself in a good spot. So we're all passionate about investments. So if you guys are passionate about property investments, I think we can get along. Again, if you're clear on your goals, 3 easy steps, mhq.co.nz, our team will set you up with a mortgage review and you can look at your options with our mortgage advisor. If you're B, unclear with your goals but want to learn more, you can rewatch this video. I think Timmy is going to send out a replay of this video. And then you can revise some of the case studies and exercises as well. Especially if you are not that good with numbers, then you got to force yourself to do some of those numbers in the 3 C's exercise. And then YouTube, Google, very good resources for you guys out there. Not necessarily just on our YouTube, but Graham Stephan, like I said, a good YouTube channel. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate your time, taking your evening out. So yeah, have a good one. Keep safe, and chat to you guys soon.
Auckland Investment Club.